Have Nick Ferrari live from, I think you're up in Liverpool at the conference, aren't you, Nick, this morning?
I am.
Great.
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Hello, good morning.
yes,
Sorry about the noise in the background.
No, you carry on. Sonia's here in the studio. Sonia, so great to have you both here to talk through the headlines. And we're going to start with something that the Prime Minister will be talking about today. Nick, I'm sure you've been talking about it on your radio show already. He's set to announce an online hospital expected to deliver 8.5 million appointments in its first 3 years.
That's right. This is going to be part of the Prime Minister's speech. He's speaking at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Sonia can also speak to the fact that he really does have to turn up the temperature a little bit. The threat of Andy Burnham taking over has probably gone away, but they are looking for policies. This is the time where the Prime Minister probably has to set out a vision. And what are the key areas we worry about? Well, we worry about our children and their schools, and we worry about our health. And this is an idea. Any of your viewers in Southampton, it's already been piloted there. The Health Secretary was telling us earlier, and it's worked very well. This is the idea, as you say, NHS online, effectively giving you access to consultants, to doctors, all via online. This has its origins during the period of COVID, where we went to so many more online consultations. It is the view of the government that this has worked well. This will cut waiting times. We even had the Health Secretary say that in Southampton, waiting times of 4 months have been cut to 4 days. Now, it won't come out until 2027, which is something I challenged him over. I said, come on, you've got all of this year, you've got all of next. The reason for that, they say, Ben, Kat, Sonia, is that they want to make sure it's all working. So when they press the button, it will launch. It's going to be very eye-catching. It's up to your viewers to decide if they think it can work.
So, of course, if you are, Sonia, digitally capable and you can get online, this sounds like a bit of a godsend. And those statistics, if they've gone from 4 months to 4 days, that's really, really impressive. What are the concerns with it, though?
So I guess there's a couple of concerns. The first one is if you're not online, if you don't have a smartphone, now most younger people do have a smartphone, but we know particularly age over 65, 70, they are a bit less likely to have smartphones. So is this going to exclude people who aren't online, who don't have that easy access? I think the thing that's important to say about this, though, is it's not going to be compulsory to do a hospital appointment online. So hopefully that will reassure the public. This is going to be an opt-in system. So if you want the online appointment for convenience, you can opt into it. And I'm guessing it means that you might get seen sooner. That's one thing. The second is, and a lot of this is really about convenience. So much of our lives, we live online. If people have got private health insurance through their work, we know about kind of 9% of the population have private health insurance. They'll already be doing this because it's so convenient. So a lot of private health insurance companies, they hook you up with specialists, with consultants, and you're able to have those online appointments. But the real question is it's still going to take the same number of doctors and nurses to staff these appointments. So whether you're having an online 20-minute appointment with somebody or having it in a hospital, it's obviously going to be much more convenient for you if you're not having to drive an hour, say, to the nearest city or the nearest town to go to the hospital to see the specialist. More convenient for you. But how much does it actually cut the amount of time that it's going to take doctors and nurses? Not very much, if at all, because they've still got to do the online appointments. So I think it's going to be really good for convenience, potentially. But in terms of the key factor around waiting lists, which is that you've got lots and lots of people waiting to see doctors, and we've got a staff shortage in the NHS, it's not going to address that core underlying staff shortage.
And as you say, Nick, 2027 is when it's coming. His speech today is an important one, though, isn't it? Because am I right in saying he's got the worst popularity of any Prime Minister since the polls begun? He hasn't had a great start.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that's what you pick up if you're in Liverpool. There is obviously huge support. I mean, it was only 14 months ago that this man delivered a stunning victory for the Labour Party, and the delegates here and others have recognised that. But those 14 months have been, I think Sonia would agree, have been a little bit empty. We've not had a lot of policies. And you're right, his popularity, do we call it, is at minus 66%. So you might have thought John Majors were bad. Here you see him arriving with his wife, Lady Victoria, at the start of the conference on the weekend. You might have thought John Majors were bad. You might have thought Boris Johnson. You might have thought Liz Truss's were bad. His is even worse after just 14 months. So that's the job he's got on his hands in a little under 4 hours' time.
It'd be interesting to see that speech and how it goes down.
Absolutely. Nick, you mentioned before you were talking about the health service, then you were talking about our children. Amanda Holden has hit out at unfair claims that her daughter Lexi is a Nepo baby. Amanda's 17-year-old daughter Lexi has been scouted by model agency Storm But Amanda insists that Lexi's modelling career has nothing to do with her. What do you think, Sonia? Because obviously, as any parent would, if you could help and do an introduction, of course you would. And actually, I used to be at Storm, and that's a multi-million-pound business. So they are
global
not
business.
Yeah, they're not about to take on somebody.
They're not going to take on someone just because they're someone's daughter or son. But it really does help you get noticed, doesn't it, and get your foot through the door. And I think the important thing to say is that, you know, no one... There are some parents who are famous who say, look, I'm really not going to help out my kids. They've got to make their own way. I would say that's probably the more unusual way to be. Most parents, it doesn't matter whether you're famous, how much wealth you've got, most parents will pull out the stops to help their kids get on in life. And that is something that's really nice. I think it's really natural. It's something to be celebrated. But I do think there's a bigger question for us as a society, which is we don't want to live in a society where, depending on who your parents are, it's much, much easier to get your foot in that door. And it is, to some extent. And to some extent, maybe we're never going to be able to shift that. But I think recognising that we live in a world where that's the case, and especially when you're talking about very, very competitive industries like modelling or acting, say, where you've got loads of people with a huge amount of talent, and it isn't a meritocracy to the extent that you might be incredibly talented, you might just not have the right contacts, you might just not have the luck that you need to make it through. So I think it is important to acknowledge that. But, you know, at the same time, I also think there are probably disadvantages to being the son or daughter of somebody quite famous and wealthy.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of pressure on you, and the thing that parents want for their kids, right, is for them to do better than them.
Sure.
And if you've got a parent who's, say, a really famous politician, I know people who are sons and daughters of famous politicians, sons and daughters of famous TV presenters, sometimes actually that's a lot of pressure on you.
Amanda insists, Nick, that Lexi's modelling career has nothing to do with her. It does, doesn't it? Because, of course, she and Chris are absolutely gorgeous, so their genes have created a beautiful daughter as well, who is going to have, I'm sure, a very successful modelling career. But it's an interesting point, isn't it, that there are examples, as Sonia was saying, of famous people who have... I mean, famously, Tony Blair's son, Ewan, who has gone on to create a very successful career, but he had a real problem, you know, as a teenager and a young man, didn't he, sort of dealing with the pressure that came with being the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister's son.
Yes, there was an unfortunate incident when he's just taken his school exams, which we won't dwell on. But you're right, Heather. But I'm totally with Kat on this. There's no way that this agency would take on this young woman if they didn't think she was any good. By the way, Amanda Holden is one of my fellow global acts, and I sometimes ride an elevator with her, and she's got very sharp heels, so I'm not going to say anything that might annoy her. She starts sticking her heels into me, because I love Amanda Holden. But I've got a confession, right? My career in journalism started. My late father was quite a senior figure on the Daily Mirror. He was a news editor, as they called it, for a long time. I got my first shift, you do a day shift, through my dad. If you honestly think I was then employed by the Mirror for however many years, simply because of my dad, that is nuts. You maybe get a chance, maybe they have a look, but they employed Amanda's daughter, I'm so sorry, Lexi, because she's a great-looking girl, and I wish her the best of luck. And as I say, I agree with Amanda Holden, because I don't want coffee poured over my head tomorrow in the lift.
Or a kick in the shins from those pointy stilettos.
I know, with those heels. Oh, my God, those heels. I don't need that.
Gorgeous.
Now then, Nick, let's move on. You mentioned your global family, because, of course, there's a number of radio stations under the global network. Our third story, is there a global five-a-side football team?
No, but I think we need to start it, and I'd like your viewers' suggestions. Obviously, I'm going to go in goal because of my sheer physical bulk. Jamie Theakston, we could have Jamie Theakston on the wing, and then we need Moyesy. We need Moyes as the midfield general, don't we? What do you think, Ben? Have I started to put a team together? What do you reckon?
You've got a potentially sensational lineup, for sure, at Global, because, of course, apparently 35% of companies survey that if they have a team within the business, they have fewer sick days because everybody enjoys going in to talk about being part of the team and playing football with the team, and it becomes a really important part of the work environment.
Totally buy into this. I read this story, one of your colleagues put it up to me. I think was it Mercedes-Benz vans. Let's credit them. They did some research on that. Yes, I think a team, isn't it like a marriage? A team that plays together stays together, a couple that play together stay together. Of course it's going to build links. Of course you're going to turn up. And I think it fosters probably great productivity, and certainly great attendance as well, less absenteeism. I'm absolutely up for this, but I'm only going to play in goal.
50%, Sonia, productivity, said that productivity improved. 48% said the workplace sport teams contributed to a better work culture.
Yeah, they're a really interesting set of findings, and it suggests that if you, as an employer, take time to build your team and get them to like each other and do things with each other that aren't necessarily always 100% work focused, that can have knock-on impacts to the workplace. So I think that's a really good finding. I think it's quite intuitive. It's one that we're trying with a lot of employers. I think the one thing I will say, though, is it's important. I mean, five-a-side, great, but more men play football than women. That's changing because, you know, with the success of the Lionesses. But I think it's important to have activities that draw in everyone from the workplace. So if it's kind of mixed-sex five-a-side that, you know, draws everyone in, but you don't want something that, you know, say in a male-dominated industry excludes some people because, you know, they've never played football or whatever. So I think employers sort of have a careful line to tread between sort of, you know, it's like the traditional British activity where activity is going down the pub, isn't it, when you finish work.
Absolutely.
Which still happens, of course. But again, you know, people tend to do it in different ways now because fewer people drink than ever before. So it's just about making sure that everyone can join in.
Nick?
Are you waving your pen, Nick?
Nick's thinking, I still go down the pub.
Can I be captain of the going down the pub team? That is what I'm definitely made for.
You do well in the pub quiz, Sean.
That one's very oversubscribed right now. But I think there will be a leadership competition to see who would be the captain. It's an interesting thing set against the backdrop of Keir's speech today. Our next story is about that. We touched on it earlier. I wonder, Sonia, how on earth Keir Starmer will be feeling about this speech this afternoon.
Well, it's a really big speech for him, and it's a big speech. I mean, I think less in terms of addressing the country, because let's face it, you know, normal people aren't tuned into their TV screens watching the ins and outs of a party conference. But what it's really important for is this is his opportunity to speak to his party members, his councillors, his MPs in the hall of his conference, and it has been a very difficult 14 months for him. He's very unpopular with the public. MPs are aware of that. They're very worried the next election, it might be 3.5 years away, but lots of them are worried about losing their seats. This is his opportunity to try and win them back over because there's been a lot of grumpiness on the Labour backbenches for a good few months now, and it's been getting worse over the summer. So it is a test for him. That said, speeches only go so far in terms of winning people over. And Labour's big issue is it fought the last election saying, vote for us and we will fix the economy. That was its biggest pledge. You look at the economic forecast and it's hard to see where that growth that's so important for people to feel like they've got more money in their pockets at the end of the month. That's a really key factor in terms of how people are going to vote at the next election. It's hard to see, you know, there's a lot of gloomy forecasts out there. So, yes, it's an important speech, but the most important thing for Labour is, you know, can they get some growth in the economy so that filters through into people's wage packets and people feel like they're better off by the time of the next election? That is absolutely key for Keir Starmer.
Interesting. Right, Nick, Sonia, thank you for the time being. We will be back with you a little bit later on.
Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and we'll see you in the morning.